Machio wakes up from his dream of being in a hospital. He went outside his room and is immediately greeted by a maid. He greets his good morning with the people inside the house and then he went outside. There he encounters a white-haired beauty and an angel. They wondered if there's anything wrong with Machio as he was staring at them. He then told them that he hadn't had a dream in a long time and so he was just thinking about it. This is the Great Tree Village, a village where Hiraku made. Before all this happened, this is a story of Machio who was on his last breath at the hospital. God appeared before him and told him that he will give him a second chance at life and reincarnates him. This time, he will give him a healthy body. He asked Machio what he wants on his second life, and Machio responds to God that he wants to be a farmer. God then bestows upon him the almighty farming tool. God then said his farewell and sends him over to the other world. Upon waking up, Machio discovers himself in a forest. After touching himself and moving his body, he felt happy to have a healthy body. It is the start of his farming life. He assessed himself and it seems like he looks younger than he should and dressed as a villager. He tried summoning the almighty farming tool and a plowing tool appeared before him. After using it, it feels as if he doesn't lose any stamina while plowing. The next thing he wanted to do was find a water source and food. As he listens to the noise in the forest, he couldn't hear any stream of water. As he walked, a sudden gust blew behind him and that scared him, thinking he should find a safe place as fast as he can. After stumbling on a giant tree, he decided to make it his base camp. He then walked around it to see if there's any water source, but failed. He then decided to dig for water and summons a shovel. As he dug and dug, he realized he'll get stuck if he just digs straight down and decided to dig diagonally. He finally hit water. Now his next concern is to get food, but he doesn't feel hungry at all. He then decided to clean up the area of his base and failed to find any food. Since there were trees on his way, he decided to cut down those trees and to his surprise he took it down in one blow. He praised the almighty farming tool once more. He then started to process the wood and made lumber. He was so busy he didn't even notice that the day has already ended. He needed a light source as fast as he can before he gets engulfed by darkness, but his almighty farming tool couldn't turn into anything that could make fire. Since he couldn't make fire, he decided to make a cave under the giant tree and just rested there until morning. He wondered if it's because of his healthy body that he can see better at night, or is it because of the two moon which symbolizes he really is in another world. The next day, he made fire with a magnifying glass and then proceeded on clearing the area. He still haven't felt hungry even after all that work, and suddenly a rabbit with fangs attacked him out of nowhere. He smacked it down in one hit and it became barbecue. It didn't taste good without salt. But he is still grateful of having something to eat. The next thing he worked on was making a toilet, after sitting in the middle of nowhere in a toilet. It didn't feel comfortable, so he decided to make a screen. After all those shenanigans, he finally decided to plow the land and thought about planting vegetables. But there was one big problem: he had no seeds. He went to sleep and the next morning, plants sprouted out of nowhere. He then thought if this was the power of the almighty farming tool. He then built fences to keep animals away from his farm. Rabbit seems to like charging head first at him, so he got his second kill. The next day, he watered his farm and it seems to grow really fast, another effect of the almighty farming tool. He then made a small log house for him to rest. He feels motivated day by day as his plants grew. The next day, he saw dogs outside his farm. Since they didn't seem aggressive, he invited them over and fed them some meat with the boar he just killed. He noticed the dog having a big belly, seems like it was pregnant. The female dog suddenly looked like it was in pain, so he transferred them to the log house he just made. He couldn't really help, so all he could do at the moment was put a fire so they don't get cold at night. As Machio looked at the sky, he fell asleep. He woke up, immediately rushed to the log house, and sees a lot of puppies. He was happy the female dog has safely delivered her babies. He then feed the dogs the good cut of meat as a reward for the safe delivery. He thought that the dog might go somewhere after giving birth, but they seem to have decided to stay at the farm. So he made a new house and gave the dogs the old house. His first harvest were tomatoes and it tasted like the tomatoes he knew. The dogs helped him with catching prey that tries entering the farm, and they also protect the farm from any harm from the outside. He named the dogs Koro, Yuki, and then the other puppies Koro 1, 2, 3, and 4. He is happy the dogs are happy with the harvest. There is a lot of jobs waiting for Machio, but he decides to take it slow and easy. Machio checking out the crops he planted with no seed. He had potatoes, onions, tomatoes, and cabbage. It seems plants grow just by thinking about it while he is plowing the land. He did an experiment to see if he was right, so he plowed the land thinking of soybean and saw a sprout. He waited for days to confirm if it was soybean after growing. And yes, it is confirmed to be, and his theory was right. Machio thought that the only reason he could live like this was because of the gods, so he made 2 wooden statues as respect. Then we see Machio living a primitive life, boiling rabbit stew with the crops he grew. He wished he has salt because the taste was bland. He also feeds his dogs properly with drained blood rabbit. He thinks he might be spoiling them, but it's fine since they're happy. He then decides to try something new and planted fruit-bearing trees. If this works out, his diet would improve. It would probably take years before those fruits grew, but he doesn't mind waiting. On this scene, we see Machio playing with his dogs. He thought how lonely it would have been if they weren't here. They also help him out on traveling through the forest without getting lost. Thanks to that, he can explore the forest further, and eventually he found a river. He decided to dig out a path of water to run at his home. On this scene we see Machio turning his almighty farming tool into a wagon, and since he doesn't get tired when he uses the almighty tool, he life-hacked his stamina and explore faster. The next day, he expanded his farm and planted oilseed crops to get oil. Next is wheat, so he can obtain flour. Sugarcane because he wants something sweet. And before he knew it, the bean sprouts he grew turned into soybeans. On the next scene, we see Machio getting cold from the weather. He needed to prepare for it, but he didn't have anything used aside from pelt from giant rabbits, but they smell awful. He was afraid it would rot. He thought that his only option was stay inside his hut and light a fire. The dogs called for his attention and introduced him to a giant spider later called Zabuton. She was capable of making clothing. Her favorite food is potato, and she even managed to make him a coat. His worries for clothing is now solved when Zabuton joined the farm. Finally winter came. As he is living inside his hut, he is glad he had prepared everything. Zabuton is currently hibernating in the giant tree. Machio was feeling lonely as he is chilling in his hut. It's been a while since he last talked to anyone. As the snow began to melt and spring came, the puppies have fully grown and left the farm and entered the forest. He was happy and sad to see them grow and leave. They came back after a few days and brought partners. Then after not seeing Zabuton for a while, she showed up with kids. Everyone has a big family now. Machio is jealous. He worked harder at the farm since there were more mouths to feed. He suddenly heard Zabuton knocking, signaling there's a hostel in the area. After going to the scene, he found a white-haired girl. She is Ryu, she is a vampire. She suddenly jumped on Machio and sucked his blood when he approached her. She then transformed to her adult form. His dogs attacked her again and she turned to a little girl again. Machio approached her, asked if she was an enemy. She said no, and Machio let her suck his blood and she transformed into a teenage body, but she told her to suck more so. Machio, man of culture. He brought Rue to the farm and showed her around. He gave her tomato to have a taste. She is happy with the food and curious about the other crops, so they toured the farm around more. He brought her to his hut, as they talked about farm stuff. Her name is Rue Rurasi. As mentioned earlier, she is a vampire. She is currently researching in medical plants. She explained how she angered nobles and ran away. They sent someone to chase after her, but she got away. She decided to head to the forest to lose them, and that's when she got attacked by the wolves. As he stared at Rue, he asked him if she could stay with him forever. He begged again for her to stay strongly. He doesn't care if she's a vampire. He explained how he was bad at socializing and living alone was sad. Rue said it was all too sudden, but she accepts the offer. It was a sudden proposal. He then thought about it and got embarrassed of what he just said. Rue still accepted the proposal and he was so happy he hugged Rue tight. The next day, they greeted each other good morning and talked about what they are about to do next. Machio then proceeded that they will start to grow crops in the field. This is where the episode ends. If you like the video, don't forget to like and subscribe.